Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. I hope everyone's doing fantastic as usual. So last Friday I managed to check out Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which is of course the sequel to Venom, which came out I think in 2018, I believe it was. And of course is the latest superhero comic book flick that is currently out right now. So yeah, without further ado, let's talk about it. So, Venom Let There Be Carnage kicks off with Eddie Brock, who, since the first film, is still struggling to coexist with the alien symbiote Venom, with the two constantly butting heads and being at each other's necks all day and night. This gives way for deranged serial killer Casady to become the host of a new symbiote, Carnage, inevitably leading to a reign of terror, one that will prevail should Eddie and Venom not put their differences aside and come together to stop this devastating threat. Alright, so what I feel like I firstly have to address is the question, is this sequel, Let There Be Carnage, better than the first film? I don't actually know the answer to that question, but what I will say is that I personally preferred this sequel. And there are several reasons as to why that is the case. The main thing that this sequel gets right, in my opinion, is its tone. It's definitely not perfect, but it is definitely a lot more consistent than the first film. It's a lot more self-aware of what it is, and it's not trying to be this, super cool, groundbreaking new comic book flick, but instead it takes the campiness and the craziness and the hysterical nature of Eddie and Venom's relationship and really doubles down on that aspect. And as a result, what you get is an hour and a half of just pure mindless entertainment, but it's an hour and a half that you can actually have quite a lot of fun with if you don't take it too seriously. This time around, the king of motion capture performance, Mr. Andy Serkis, is in the director's chair, and unlike the first film, you can actually feel an artistic voice behind the camera as opposed to, this big studio presence. And another reason as to why this is the case is because of Robert Richardson, the director of photography on the film, who is of course known for his masterful collaborations with directors like Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese on films like Kill Bill, Django Unchained, The Aviator, Hugo. So from an aesthetic perspective, Let There Be Carnage is leagues beyond its predecessor. And not to mention the final confrontation between Venom and Carnage, you can actually see, it's not up against a black night sky and you're struggling to tell what the hell is going on. You can actually, see everything in wide shots, and it's really, really terrific work from a visual standpoint. The special effects on display here are easily some of the best I've seen this year. The symbiotes actually feel a little more real and tangible this time around, which is weird to say because they're obviously creations of CGI, but I don't know. I felt like because of Andy Serkis's expertise, having worked with CGI for the better part of his career, he was really able to have that particular aspect of the film feel so much more realized. Let's talk about the performances. Tom Hardy is once again great as Eddie Brock. He's obviously able to be a lot more playful and have a lot more fun in this role as opposed to maybe some of his other roles, which are, more serious. But I have to give the guy huge props because he is that good and that compelling, and he's acting with essentially a non-existent acting partner for most of the time. And I'm really happy that this sequel decided to focus on the dynamic between Eddie and Venom, because that was easily the best aspect of that first film. And the way, their relationship plays out in this sequel is almost like this sort of buddy rom-com flick, if you could call it that. Woody Harrelson plays Casady, and I thought he was pretty entertaining in the role. Like Tom Hardy, he's clearly having a lot of fun, and he's bringing a lot of energy and craziness to this role, which, of course, is essential when you're playing a serial killer. Naomi Harris is also in the film, playing a character called Scream, who is basically this love interest of Casady, who is equally just as disturbed. I don't think she was bad in the role, but I just do not think that her and Woody Harrelson had that much on-screen chemistry together, and quite frankly, I really did not buy into their relationship. I think her character was used more as a plot device to give the main antagonist motivation, and I didn't really think that was necessary because at the end of the day he's a serial killer. But since we are on the topic of antagonists, let's talk about Carnage. As a kid, I used to watch the original Spider-Man cartoon series, and I remember seeing Carnage for the first time, and he absolutely terrified me. His threat in the show was so great that Spider-Man was forced to do something completely unheard of at the time for me. He actually had to team up with Venom, one of his biggest adversaries, in order to stand a chance to take down Carnage. And since then, I always regarded the character of Carnage as one of the all-time greatest comic book villains. On top of that, there were of course the rumours that Carnage was going to be the main villain of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, were it to go ahead as planned. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I've been waiting for this character for quite a while to see him in live action, and now that I have, I've really got quite a mixed response to it. I think the character of Carnage looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, we'd already seen the trailer, so we already knew he'd, look pretty great, but to see him in the cinema was almost like a surreal experience for me as a big Spider-Man fan. I think they really nailed the appearance of the character, and it looked like he'd been pulled straight from the comic books. The sound design as well was just brilliant, and I would probably have to say that my favorite sequence was that of when Carnage breaks out of prison. That was probably my favorite part of the entire film. But on the other hand, as a villain and as a symbiote separate from Casady, he's really uninteresting, and he's not that different from Riot. Apart from the aesthetic, he's not that different from Riot, who was of course the main villain in the first Venom film. So that was quite disappointing for me, like I said, as a long-time Spider-Man fan, because I had held him in such high regard. But of course, if you don't have that attachment to the character, you probably won't be as disappointed with this specific aspect as me. But yeah, it was a shame to see him just be wasted like that. But overall, I think that this film is arguably just as big of a mess as the first film with regards to its story. I think the 12 rating, even though Andy Serkis does his best to really push that rating to its max, it really limits the film on what it potentially could be and where it could take its characters. I mentioned before that you can still have a lot of fun with Let There Be Carnage, as long as you don't really take it that seriously. It's easy to consume, but that also means that it's potentially not going to be sticking with you, weeks down the line. If you're a superhero fan like myself, it's a bit of a shame to be saying this, but the end credit scene is probably the most memorable part of this entire movie. It of course does open the door for a lot of new and exciting opportunities moving forward with these characters. But anyways, judging the film for what it is, I would summarize by saying it's not that much better than the first with regards to quality in the story, but it is a lot more aware of its identity, and it does embrace that aspect. And because of that, I was able to have quite a bit of fun with it. But nevertheless, I'm going to give Venom Let There Be Carnage a C. Guys, those are some of my overall thoughts on the film. What did you think of Venom Let There Be Carnage? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I am so excited to check out Dune later this week, and I can't wait to talk about it on the channel. So stay tuned for that video, which should be coming soon. And of course, as always guys, thank you so much for checking out the video, and I'll catch you very soon in the next.